Did you move that slide? That's not where it belongs, honey. It does go where I wanted it. It's okay. Can you log in, please, so I can make you a co-host? Good morning, Justin. Justin, where are you right now? What part of the world? I thought you were still over. Where are you now?
Brisbane.
Oh, you are. So it's like middle of the night.
Yep.
Oh, brother. Thank you so very much. I was like, there's no wait. What? 7 a.m.
My man, I am always grateful for conversations like these because I don't get to nerd out about this stuff with a lot of people that I know. So yeah, it's fun.
Cool, man. Well, you already saw the deck, so hopefully, so you have an understanding of some of it. But those single point slides are hard to understand without a text overlay. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for all that feedback. I started looking through it last night when I finished the deck, and I was like, oh wow, this is really helpful. Thank you. Hey, Wesley.
Hey. That's awesome.
Thank you, Joseph.
OG.
And I actually have set aside time this weekend for us to take a look at what you sent, and I've got a couple of things from some other folks as well. I'm going through. We've got a gentleman over in Germany engaged, and a couple of others, and
I can empathize with the idea that you've got a lot on your plate.
It's fun though. I'm excited. I'm staying up late again. Hey, Wesley, what are you up to, brother? We're not gonna have a lot of time to catch up once we get underway, but
yeah, actually, I only can stay for 30 minutes. I have another work meeting that I have to hop over to. Life has changed a lot. I live in Wisconsin now.
I saw that.
I'm just getting over COVID. Got COVID last week. Whole family is.
Everyone's fine?
Everyone's gonna be fine. I can tell you this.
Okay.
I didn't get to the severity of like going to the hospital or anything like that.
Good.
Just some lingering symptoms, coughs, stamina, like running out of energy in the middle of the day, kind of a thing. I have a job now that I've had for a bit, but I'm looking to change. Unfortunately, I haven't been able. I think the last 4 years, I haven't been able to keep a job for a year. It's just kind of sickening. But at least this one is more of like I'm being approached for director level kind of roles.
Awesome.
I'm
Congratulations.
Thanks. But I switched jobs. I mean, careers. I'm no longer in social media. I know you know this, but I'm saying it anyway to reinforce. I'm doing developer relations, and so developer relations space in terms of like developer marketing, I'll just call it that, is extremely on fire. It reminds me of the early days of social media to the point where the career ladder for this is just developing to the point where there's no one at the top really, or like it's very lack of leadership to the point
Yeah.
where people are experienced. Most of the leadership in the phase that we're leaving is people who are kind of thrown into it and just like, okay, no, I have to manage this thing. Now it's people who've gone through it for several years and understand and also have a appetite for managing
Yep.
a lot of people who are just like to stay in the practitioner space, but I've always been comfortable in the manager layer, and so that's what's going on.
Awesome, man. I'm so glad to hear. So glad to
Wait,
hear.
wait.
Tammy, good to see
Yeah.
you as well. Good morning. Howard?
My friends.
It's I haven't seen you since last year. I'm sorry, I haven't been able to use that one yet. I had to.
I got you.
Very dapper, Howard, by the way.
Thanks. Well, it's about 58 degrees in my office, so I needed to like turtleneck up and really go for it.
Wow, chilly.
Yeah, it's 26 degrees outside my window right now. So yeah.
It
Well,
is
hey, we're
13
gonna-
degrees here.
Oh wait, whereabouts in Wisconsin? Todd, whereabouts in Wisconsin are you now, Wesley? That's what I missed.
Small town called Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
I will get out to see you when I visit my daughter, Wesley. It'd be fun.
Oh, hopefully, yeah, that'd be great. Nice
Good
to
morning,
meet
Alex.
people.
Wow. It's getting
Hi,
old
everyone.
school kicking out here.
Oh my God, look at Todd. He's got COVID hair. Holy cow.
Never lost it. Hey, Chris.
Good to see you. Awesome.
Christy. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Alex. Oh
Hi,
my
Christy.
God.
Hi, guys.
You know, we are going to, so one of the things that we're going to be using for this unconference is Lawrence Coburn's new technology, Twine. It's been around for a little while, but it facilitates that sort of one-on-one social networking, in-person networking, speed dating, if you will, that we did with the original Brain Jams. But it also has a small group feature. So if we have more time here in the coming weeks, we're going to do this again with the OGs, and we're going to do it more as a let's catch up, let's talk, let's get to see each other again. Good morning, Aaron. Good morning, John. Jesus, my friend. Man, I'd still stay on top of everything you're doing with the advisory. Bill, oh, you're just up the road, and I'm just seeing you now for the first time in years. Oh, so good to see you guys. And Barbara, thank you so very much for joining us as well. Barbara, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Great to be here.
I feel like we're in that little, what was the show where they do I see you in the mirror at the end of the day, and I see Sally and I see Timmy.
Oh, I
and
was on that show. Thank you. That would be Romper Room.
Romper Room.
No, actually, no. Was it the Magic Garden or Romper Room? I was on.
I think it was Romper Room.
at some
Me
point.
too. As a kid.
It
me
was
too.
Romper Room.
As a kid. As a kid, yes. Justin.
Hi,
really,
Gloria.
really
I
It
was
a New York
big.
City-
I was 7 and I was big.
Hey,
The high
Oh
point.
man,
High
this is
point.
kindergarten
Down
for
from there.
me.
Kat.
early peak,
Hey, Michael.
early peak.
Thanks for joining.
You got Aaron in there too.
I'm gonna wait 2 more minutes just to get people going, and then I'm gonna jump into it because I'd like to open up for more conversation. And as usual, I've got a lot to say, although I think I've structured it in a way that we can move through it rather quickly. So that's good. Mr. Burke, good morning. Good to see you or hear you or know that you're there. There he is. All right, Mark, I got you.
We should have
Mike,
done
I
this
think
even
you're on
without
mute.
all the Web 3.0 thing. We should have just
Yeah,
done
of course. Of course. Good
Okay.
morning, Nathan.
All right. I have a test for the fans. For those of us of a certain age who might have grown up a little close to the northern border, I want to see if you can recognize this.
Uh-oh. You got a famous selfie with somebody, huh?
No. This is my ringtone. Anybody? No, no one grew up close to Canada. All right, fair enough.
Not yet.
Mr. Dress Up.
Hmm.
I have no
No, I
idea
had
what that
Bozo
is, Todd.
growing up. I was
Oh,
in Chicago.
I
Mr.
am-
Dress Up now identifies as non-binary. It doesn't like to use Mr. anymore.
Wow.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and get this kick in here. CC, thank you so very much for joining again. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Got that going. So, first of all, thank you all for joining in. I really, really appreciate it. I'm not gonna, there's so much I want to say, but let me just get this into presentation mode, and I'll keep it on track so we can actually open it up and have a conversation here. Wow, take a breath, huh? So amazing to be back here once again. And I'm so grateful to be alive after everything we've been through in the last several years. As you know, we have lost several friends and people who were a big part of our world for a long time. And this is just in honor of that spirit and of the values that really drew many of us together and that sustained our relationships and so much more. But I'm here because we're going to be putting on the Web 3.1 Unconference, looking at what will it take to deliver on the promise of Web 3.0. We'll talk a little bit more about Web 3 in a minute and what have you. Hashtag is Web 3.1 Unconference right now. And you'll notice that right now the organization is Web 3.1 DAO. We'll talk more about that here in a little minute. But what I'd really love is your engagement in supporting and leading and becoming a part of what is next. And to that end, Christy, can you go ahead and launch that poll? What I really like to understand right now is where you stand in terms of your awareness of Web 3.0. I'll tell you that up until really October-ish, I was looking at it as JPEG scams, hucksters, and a lot of other things like that myself, because I couldn't see past the mainstream media narrative itself. As I started diving more deeply, I actually was going back and forth with Jeremiah a little bit. And then Peter Shankman kicked in and said, oh, this tweet is not going to age very well, because I'm like NFTs are scams or something like that I had said. And when he jumped in on it and seeing what the other things that they were talking about, like using an NFT as a online identity, as a badge to unlock things, and other ways that it could be used, is really a social object replacing swag at conferences and what have you. I jumped in and I'm like, okay, let's start learning this. So I ended up taking, even though I'd read Don Tapscott's book on blockchain, I ended up taking the class that he has on Coursera and diving more deeply into it. And what I found was really, really exciting, because in essence, what I found was that this new technology enabled the sorts of things I've been thinking about for 25 years, since I first ran into time banking and co-ops and a lot of other things that were out there early, for ways that we could actually work together and better distribute value according to contributions made. And those of you who know me know that fairness has always been a part of it, but that's what really excited me about this Web 3.0 technology. It wasn't just about anarchists trying to take over the world with the new cryptocurrency and set it on fire. It's so much more than that. And we'll get to that in a minute. But right now, it looks like, we're in that sort of early middle stage where the early adopters of social media and the folks that we know out there are getting aware of it, starting to, and we've got a couple of people who have gone a lot further, which is great, because that's really what we want to do. And what we're doing here is greatly informed by what we learned from this. Christy, can you go ahead and grab a screenshot of that? And then, oh no, it saves it. I forgot, it saves it. All right, I'm going to end the poll and get moving forward. The results here, which I was just talking about, not realizing you guys weren't seeing it, is that somebody knows a little bit about this and a couple of people know a lot, and most of us are in the middle. And I think that's really good, because one of the values I think that's really important that we've really discovered over the last couple of years is it's not being a master, it's actually pursuing mastery. And understanding that we're lifelong learners and that we need to actually continue in that mindset, to have that beginner's mind, to have that willingness to do that. That's another reason why I wanted to come back and tap into this amazing group of people who we've known now for 15, 17 years in some cases. So let me get back in and explain more of what it is that we're looking to. So first of all, it is about doing a unconference, a participant-led virtual conference. It is going to be online. I'll tell you that I've learned that some of the big technology companies who had planned hybrid events for March, April, around that timeline, have canceled the in-person components due to the uncertainty. While the current news in the mainstream media seems to be that it's going to get a little better for us in the US, at least by then, we just don't know. So the intent is ultimately to have, again, local meetups supporting this and do some similar things in terms of structure that we have. But we'll see how that goes. The first one, though, I'm just shooting. We're just going to do it online. And what we really want to understand, again, is as with the Web 2.0 technology, there was a lot of promises made about how it would uplift society. And if you've been digging deep into Web 3, or if you've just started looking at it, you'll see that a lot of promises like serving the unbanked, like being green and all this other stuff just isn't true. And in some cases, it's just a matter of the evolution of the tech. And in other cases, it's a matter of those human principles are not being considered properly. Particularly things like ENS, which is the .eth names that you may be seeing. We finally got ours a little while ago as well. Chris Hewer.eth and ChristyWells.eth. Now that's actually a wallet address. We'll talk more about the details and the technologies and get into some of the subject matter separately. But the point there being is that in order to create that record, which in essence is a form of a DNS, they call it ENS, Ethereum Name Service, I had to pay for 5 separate transactions in order to get all the information in there. I'm sorry, 3 separate transactions in order to get all the information in there. So essentially they were using network resources 3 times and charging me 3 times in order to do what should have been a basic entry. So this is where I'm talking about human-centric principles and the idea of serving people as opposed to being a new middleman. And so seeing that there's a new middleman arising, even though they're promising decentralization and so much, is one of many reasons that led me to say, oh, wow, we're repeating the same mistakes again. Let's see if we can bring our wisdom to bear and actually prevent some of that from happening. So hold on one second. I always have problems with my screen not moving properly here. Why are you not moving? Why does this happen to me, Christy?
Maybe the presentation should be on the blockchain.
Definitely not. Definitely not. There we go. Come on. I think my laptop's just dead already. And by the way, I just got a pre-M1 Intel version. All right, I'm going to do it from here instead. Sorry, guys. It just makes more sense probably.
Hey, Chris, because we're sharing bandwidth, I'm going to go off video, but maybe you go off video on this too, just to help.
Okay.
Because we're in a small little ski resort town and sometimes internet fails.
Okay. So there we go. That's what we were looking for. So what is Web 3.1? Well, yeah, it's intended to be a little cheeky. We did Web 2.1 a couple of months after the first bar camp. And of course, we were looking to expand the unconference, but also we were looking at some of the ridiculous aspects of Web 2.0, versioning the web, that seems kind of silly. And also, again, some of these other technology problems that we thought it wasn't about the technology, it's about the people. So that spirit still kind of holds true here, because the tagline we're working with here for Web 3.1 is the point is still people. And so what are we trying to do with it? Well, actually, when we had an interview with Matt Mullenweg and had a conversation about 2 weeks ago now, we hit upon the fact that it might just be about one person at a time as well. But this name will ultimately give way to some other name and some other kind of entity that is more representative of it. But right now it becomes that catalyst, that placeholder of what we're doing next. Christy, wait, did I do this already? Oh yeah, no, go ahead. Christy, launch the next poll, please.
And it's out.
All right. So which aspects of Web3 are you familiar with? What parts of it are interesting to you? What have you actually paid attention to? What does it really mean to you? And there's some obvious basic stuff. So I'm really interested in seeing the other elements of it and what other aspects of it are interesting to you. I'll tell you, for me as well, I've actually been playing around for the last year with virtual facilitation inside of Spatial. And inside of AltSpace and a couple of other different applications. And I really, really think that there's great potential for there. In fact, as you may have read, one of the things I've been doing lately is working out in my Quest headset. Many people do that, but I finally got into boxing. And as soon as I started getting into boxing, I started really losing weight. It's such a workout. It's crazy. But seeing a lot of people were up to 85% participation. So I'll just give it another couple of 15 seconds if you have anything else you want to add. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and close this up now. All
I'm going
right.
to say that semantic web has been around for a while. I know Juan is a PhD on it. And so I would not put that in Web3 personally.
Well, the reason why I included it, and I'll share the results here with everyone here. The reason why I included it is because that was the original definition of Web3 that arose back 9-10 years ago, maybe even further than that. I'm not going to cite the history right now because I didn't memorize it for this. But of course, it does involve crypto. It does involve NFTs, but it's really about the blockchain, as I'll get to here in a minute. And that leads to a lot of other things. Yeah, it's pretty much as I suspected, but I just wanted everyone else to see this is still an emergent thing. So it means there's opportunity, there's confusion, and there's work that needs to be done that I believe we can all be a really big part of. All right, let me go ahead and move forward now. Christy, did the poll disappear? No, it didn't. Have you seen
I had actually shared the results. I'm assuming everybody saw it, but then I stopped sharing. So because I said you wanted to move
Thank
forward.
you so very much. Appreciate it. So lots of different definitions. Going back to the semantic web, as Wesley and I were just discussing, and some people think it's just crypto, some people think of it as NFTs, and some people think it's just metaverse and VR, but it's more than that. And if you have seen any of Mark Canner's comments on this whole thing, he wants it to be more inclusive. I do as well. I think it is a sort of rallying cry. It is a tag. It is a symbol. It is a marketing ploy. It is all these different things. But what it is it's representative of a broader movement, of a broader opportunity. And that opportunity is about moving to this new web of value. Now, you really have to read more of Don Tapscott's work. I can't do it justice to express this idea, but the original web, TCP/IP, was designed for information to move. What we're looking at now is how do we move, store, and ultimately own value? And I think that's a really important component on it. And the other element of it is actually about decentralization so that it can persist. I know many of you may remember my former client and good friend Simeon and Michael and those guys at Utters up in Boston. They went away and I lost like so many amazing interviews because I didn't have a way to download all that tech. Part of the idea of Web3 is persistent, immutable records on the blockchain that will keep going. So that information, if I had put that up here and shared that, I think Wesley, you were joking about it earlier, if I had put that on the blockchain, it would still be there and it would be easily accessible. And again, there's more technology behind it, but that's not what I'm really worried about. What I want to really look at again, and the reason why I'm excited about it, it means that our value can be created and shared among more people other than just the asset holders of the existing power base and the mega rich. We're seeing right now, even in Bitcoin and some of the other cryptocurrencies, that the majority of the wealth in those currencies are held by just a few small people. In some cases, organizations, and some organizations are now getting into using Bitcoin as a treasury strategy, as a hedge against inflation. So there's a lot of other things out there, but the real power, as we start seeing it, we start looking at the impact on humanity and society, is getting into the ownership. Now, this is where I actually want to move into talking about a DAO. A DAO is something that really is a bit that got me excited. And what I'll say simply is that if it existed, Social Media Club would have been a DAO from the get-go. As many of you know, we became a 501c6 here in the US. What that is a nonprofit, an NGO, that is a member-owned association. And many of you actually on this call bought essentially co-founder memberships in Social Media Club, where we were asking for $250 to help seed our operations. Well, in many ways, the DAO works in a similar way, where people stake into the DAO, they put in money, and we form together this kind of different kind of business model. Now, the DAO itself, the way that it's envisioned technically, once again, isn't necessarily considering the human side of things. There's a lot of things that they believe can all be run by code. And that's kind of the real idea behind a DAO, is that we can actually create code that governs and runs an organization, allows the stakeholders, coin token holders, to be able to vote on what is it that the company is going to do on disbursements, on profit sharing, on projects that we take, on so many different things. But in reality, that doesn't account for the fuzziness of the real world and the need to engage in a real-time environment. So when it really comes out, there still needs to be human elements engaged in looking after it. But I kind of dropped the hint earlier when I said this. There's different types of business models out here. And the reason why this makes me excited is because it's really most like a co-op. And it's something that we own together. It's cooperative. It's that if the organization grows, we all grow. Where the partnership model, which is very much similar to it, but the partnership is just about those individuals in the partnership. What a co-op to me is the ability to create that win-win-win scenario where you win, I win, the organization and society wins, right? And as I've been really looking at it, for those of you who were engaged last year a little around remotely and what we were trying to do there, I really see this in the 2020s as an era of the guild. It is bringing up the unconference principles of self-organizing, and it's bringing back a lot of the early things that we did through Social Media Club to really pioneer the way that so many other organizations have grown over the past several decades, and following in those footsteps. But the guild is about actually protecting the reputation of the professional practitioners. The guild is a mutual aid society. The guild is about actually pursuing mastery, learning from each other, and growing together as we're earning an income and contributing to and looking after our community. And there's a bunch of stuff about the guilds of old that's a little more negative if you really look at the history. Obviously, we're not looking at price protections and setting those sorts of things. We're talking about standards of quality. We're talking about ways that we can ensure that we're advancing the field, not just our own interests. And that really brings me to why you and why us. One of the things that's really amazing, if you start looking at this idea of Web3 and DAOs, is that it's exactly what we did in many ways, except for the code part, right? That technology didn't exist. But we were decentralized. We were borderless. We were community owned. You look at the community, Mark, I'm still so proud whenever I look at that Pinterest page with all those Social Media Club logos from around the world in different cities and places that I haven't even been myself. So we actually have the authority to be able to talk about this, to bring our wisdom from our experience in running a global, decentralized, borderless organization, a community that stands together behind shared values of sharing and lifting other people up. Well, again, that just matches everything that we've already done. So our objectives are pretty straightforward right now, although as usual, I have a complex vision for much more, and I have a lot of details in my mind. But what I believe we can really do, and the opportunity for this new organization, is to show more people how they can be a part of this new economy, how they can own their own data, how they can actually, have greater co-ownership in their work products. And for the last year, I've been working with Michael Moon on a program we call Waymakers. And a big part of the Waymakers is about enabling more people to play Moneyball with their careers. And the way that this is done is by negotiating for and understanding the real value you're contributing and being able to set up what you could call an engagement LLC. It's another form of a partnership where we're able to share in the value that we're contributing to our employers or to our partners or to our clients. And so that's actually a big element that the DAO allows, and we'll get into that more later. But I also want to actually be a shining star on the hill, right? Where we're able to actually show people how to do it, where we're able to take our wisdom and experience, learn more of it together, but apply what we've already learned to avoid some of the pitfalls. And in so doing, there's a whole array of professional services that are needed around this in terms of education, thought leadership, again, making sure that the right conversations are including the right people and that those things are considered early. I'm sure many of you are aware of the problem with artificial intelligence and facial recognition right now in terms of the inherent bias that has been built into some of this code. Well, I think we can prevent things like that coming in the future if we, as power users, business users, prosumers, whatever you want to label us, get involved in those conversations and make sure that happens. So the first thing, though, is putting on this Web 3.1 unconference. And so this is where the ask is really about getting you to speak, help promote the event, become an organizer, work with us. And by the way, the thing is that as with guilds, as with member-owned organizations and everything else, we're going to be asking people to stake into the DAO, to stake into this new organization. And in fact, part of the idea is that we're going to sell a patron level ticket that individuals who want to participate in the broader community and be a part of it and become an owner can actually buy a ticket level that will convert to being their stake into the DAO. So essentially they're pre-staking by buying a ticket to the event, attending the event, participating in the community. And then the day after the event, we're going to have a governance session to talk about the formation, to vote on values, to figure out where we go. And I figure that's going to really be the very formal beginning of what will be a multi-month process leading up to the actual formation, the issuance of tokens, and all the other things that are needed. Now, I'd actually tried to do that at the beginning, but the more research I did over the past several months, the more we came away with the technology is just not there yet to make it easy. And we don't have enough input because it's just me and Christy and a couple of people now, some really amazing people, by the way. A big shout out to Boris Mann and Thor Mueller and, Matt Mullenweg came the other night. We had a conversation with Brian Solis the other day is going to be very supportive, Peter Shankman, but and actually I've also reached out to Beth Ganter, who's actually doing some very similar work, and hopefully Beth is going to be doing one of the lead sessions or keynotes, but we still need to figure that out. But the thing is that need help to actually figure out what it is. So it's not just my head, my voice, that we include more voices, we include more perspectives in the basis of what it is that we do. Now I'm just going to go up to the higher level point here, because what I had stated in the invite was that this was a shared or similar purpose to what we had before. And that higher purpose in the beginning was, yes, about doing sort of a Web 2 user group. So there are elements of trying to do a Web 3 user group here. But when I looked back, and Jennifer Navarrete was really helpful in this the other day, as Michael Liskin, when we were talking at the beginning of the week, what we realized was it wasn't just about trying to reach the end goal of getting more people engaged and benefiting across society from this technology, but it was about the real leaders, the waymakers, the change agents, all of you, and the shared values we had to actually lift up society. And that really gets kind of interesting, because as we start looking at the broader picture in this Web3 movement, what I really see is that we're moving from the sharing economy into the co-ownership economy, that we're moving from the creator economy into the co-creator economy. And all of this built into the blockchain, which, by the way, is supposed to go up to 64 billion by 2026. They're all big numbers and everything. And we know it's a big opportunity, but it requires us to use it for social good, not just for speculation, securities trading, and egoic purposes. We want to show how it can be used for social impact. And in fact, when we start looking at DAOs and some of these other mechanisms, it's possibly a mechanism, and this is still to be determined, but it's possibly a mechanism to avoid the tragedy of the commons by creating true co-ownership in community projects, in community organizations and others that will create sustained engagement, that will make the organization self-sustaining, instead of relying on big donors or grants every year behind it. But the real thing in looking at this is the original spirit, coming back to what we were talking about, which is if you get it, share it. And of course, I'm not going to tell the whole story of that, but it was about lifting up others. Take our understanding, give it to others. You may remember the shirt, and when we finally figured out how to do a cartoon panel, it was one farmer with a full crop, their neighboring farmer with no crops, and the first farmer sharing seeds with the second farmer, and then both having crops. And that spirit is very much a part of it. And when we actually looked at the economic theory, we landed on co-elevation as
Hey,
kind
Chris?
of the key. Yes,
Chris, sorry, Wesley has to jump off, but he wanted to say something real quick.
please, Wesley.
Thanks. I have my work computer going on in a meeting. Hold on, let me mute that really quickly. Just quickly, this sounds interesting and amazing, and I like everyone here that's involved. I would love to be involved in something like this if we were able to establish kind of like, I know there's a chart that says our values, and I can't read that right now, but I would love to see that type of stuff related specifically to the blockchain. And not the people involved. I think that's part of it too.
Correct.
Because personally, I feel like having something, a DAO, especially based on Ethereum, is something that I want to stay away from because of the gas fees, especially. And just putting money in, taking money out, just that involvement itself, just you're immediately losing as soon as you start participating, is my impression. I'm open to be changed. But I think there are multiple ways that this technology can go from a technology standpoint, where that is some of the things that I'm interested in shaping and not just participating in. And so if we can establish that, if this group can establish like where we are, our fundamentals of interest in terms of where the technology should go and not just best practices, that would be where I would want to participate, but I have to jump off.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
thank you
you're
for
exactly
letting me
right. So thank you very much, Wesley. I appreciate that. Yes, and in fact, there's actually a couple of open standards projects that I've already got in mind that I'm looking for us to lead instead of for us to support and just be supportive of. But the bottom line here in wrapping this up, and I've got just a couple more, and we almost jumped ahead, is that the longer term vision is that coming from this unconference, that is the seed of forming this new community owned organization, is really about a professional network we co-own. We'll own our own data, our content, our reputation, and more importantly, co-own revenue streams we can co-create together. Now, there's one important element of this, which is that one of the things we really proved is the ability to scale through local smaller groups and smaller communities. So I don't envision that, well, it will be a big network, hopefully, with a lot of participation and support. It's going to be happening on the local or on the regional or interest or project level where you really form the bonds of the guild with others. There's a whole thing Douglas Rushkoff wrote recently that maybe the problem with social networking is trying to reach exponential scale. And of course, most of you are familiar with the Dunbar number stating at about 130, 150 people is a large group size, is the largest maximum group size before it starts getting strained and pulled apart. Whether or not that's true or the accurate number, what I am envisioning is that this will be a guild of guilds as much as anything else, where we're able to align around our shared values and work on these projects in furtherance of those values. What that also means, though, is that there needs to be standards of participation, ethical behavior, and contribution that are going to be a big part of the backbone underlying this whole thing, which means that bad behavior or other sorts of problems, I don't even know what they could be, but they might be out there. That will mean that people could lose their good standing in the organization, and like guilds, possibly not be a member anymore. I think that's a really important element, that we actually see those values in actions, and those who are not supporting those values are no longer part of the network. But I call it a professional network we co-own in addition to the guild, because of the fact that there's no other simpler term to explain it. So what it is really up to us at this point. I've got the seed of a vision. We see a broader common problem out there that we can address. We have the knowledge and wisdom and, yes, authority to be the ones to come and address this. And that's what I'm looking to do here together. And as I shared with you earlier on the screen, but it's be who we are, authenticity, transparency, be honest, kind, helpful. But it's this belief really, and this is what really struck me when Stephen Gans the other day brought up this Robert Farazi work around co-elevation. I've been saying this for a while, as many of you are familiar, but I've always felt that if you're better off, I'm better off. This sense of we and the power of we. And when he brought up this co-ownership economy leads to co-elevation, that really just struck me and said, that's the word we're looking for. And as we started looking at it more closely, we're like, wow, it's a really great way to talk about inclusion, to talk about economic fairness, to talk about all these other issues and about this spirit of being in it for each other. And I did say, I typoed, but put your oxygen mask on first, which is very true and something we didn't do ourselves. And that's where I'm really, where I really screwed up, although there's lots of places I screwed up, but like, that's where I really screwed up. I didn't take care of myself enough in the beginning. And we can do that now using these new mechanisms, because there's another one that's really important in here, not only to be accountable, but that we all deserve to get paid. That if we're able to create value together, we should share in that value together. Now, of course, there's issues of fairness in that, and how do we do that? But there's actually technology mechanisms now that are being built into the DAO. Particularly what I'm looking at is something called X.API, which is an advancement on a model used for e-learning to measure activity and attention and engagement. And there are mechanisms to the point being that those who contribute more will get more out. And that's both from a perspective of reputation, which is what we all got before, our social capital all greatly improved. But in this case here, it's also a matter of financial standing and financial capital. And ultimately, again, there's so much more about the fact that if we know better, we need to do better. And that's what I really want this to lead to. And so with that, I've got a lot more, and I've got a lot more details about the event, a lot more specific asks, because we're trying to identify who are the Web3 educators, evangelists, advocates, and people who share these views, because we want to bring everyone together to be able to have these conversations and to be able to, as Wesley said, not just talk about the best practices, but influence the directions of the technology and ensure that humans remain inside of the technology, that it's not all about speculation, tulip mania, and the other bits, but it's about going beyond that media hype into what is really possible for lifting up society and bringing more people into the fold. Yes, the unbanked, that's a very important story here to finally deliver on. And then to Wesley's point, one of the problems is these transaction fees that we hit at. So that's not very human-centric, because it's not making it easier to participate. There's a reason why they charge those fees, because there's a lot more energy involved, but that's a whole nother problem in green. And so we need to advocate for changing those sorts of situations and making the technology really deliver on the promise. And that's why the tag, or the focus for the event, the title of the event is, what will it take to deliver on the promise of Web3? And what I'd really think it's going to take is for people like you and I to come together, have our voices heard, work collectively to make it the sort of reality that it can be, to benefit all of society and each of us who helps to make it happen. So that's why I'm inviting you in today to help be a part of it and to volunteer now. And not just volunteer, but if you saw it on the screen, sell sponsorships, become an affiliate to help sell tickets, and to participate in the value we create by getting some of it for yourselves for the value you contribute. So with that, we'll open it up to questions. I'm sorry, I see 43 chats, but I was trying to get done in 30 minutes. I got almost close. So what do we got going on? Christy, any questions, or where are we at?
There's nothing in the chat. I just think I'd like to open it up to see if what everybody's thought is. Is everybody exhausted from just, tech in general? Do they want to do anything else? Do they want to start a new thing? I just love to kind of general consensus from everyone. Justin, go ahead.
Unmute myself. Hi, I am a teacher by training, but also a parent. So I see the pointy end of people with faces and screens. And as someone who is a fan of technology and human potential, I'm very big into the let's make this more than a way to secure arbitrage because we managed to put faces in front of a screen and leaving the business model at that. That there be some sort of greater functionality than we have put faces in front of screens, because I can guarantee you there would be people who are just willing, or sorry, trying to build another metaverse and put another generation of people in front of screens. And once they've secured those faces, they're happy to take that bank and run. I think regulatory capture going forward is going to be a thing. I think the media element of Web 2 is almost starting to be seen as a public health issue. And I believe there's huge scope to take the existing Web 2 content that exists just on social media content like YouTube and create a far more leveraged way for a leveraged and personalized way for people to interact with that content, such that you're putting the right content in front of the right faces, not just content in front of faces.
Understood. And actually, speaking to a meta point there, Justin's been working on a project to reinvent education. He's got some really interesting ideas out here. And that's an example of the sorts of things that, you know, I want to see more of. And so I'm talking to Justin, and I still have to review his white paper that he's worked on this to see how we can help. But creating a space inside of this unconference, that's what the unconference kind of means, for him to be able to talk about education and talk about these issues. In a similar way, one of my lunch club matchups from a couple of weeks ago, we got to talking, and he's working on digital twinning and what that means. That's a whole other thing about using NFTs as sort of certificates of authenticity. An NFT is also kind of a form of a deed, if you will, because it's this record of ownership, right? Non-fungible token, you can't change it. But then I'm also talking to some journalists about how we include journalism inside of this. And so there's a lot of other places where, as we saw before, we were able to bring together a cross-section of society with different focus, different interests, to be able to advance our goals together, because there are things we need to support. And it's how do we get more people to understand what the core principles are, and then how do we actually put those principles into play so that they get considered inside the technologies. And in some cases, I believe what we're going to end up doing differently this time in particular is not just to support things like Creative Commons, but to do projects that create the next versions of these open standards. And I have a few, but I'm not going to bother you with them today.
Howard, you want to jump in here?
Everybody. So many of you know that I was one of the early folks with Social Media Club, but I've taken about the last 4.5 years off from the tech industry to run a community center, something that you'd find as a YMCA or a JCC or just a regular community center in your neighborhood. We are in a downtown neighborhood, the original Lower East Side immigrant neighborhood that you know, many people came to, and we still do many of the same things we did 130 years ago. Help kids get education, help people learn English, help them get social services, and help them find jobs. And I love the, you know, the concept of being able to find ways to use this technology to help people, you know, uplift both economically, intellectually, educationally, et cetera. And I've seen very few actual things that show me that that's going to happen, because, you know, the real work is done on the ground with people. And so, you know, I always respect, you know, Chris's core value. One of Chris's core values is it's always about the people. And I appreciate that, respect that. So what I'm trying to figure out from this whole thing is like, great, so I have to take this coin and send it through this exchange to go to the, like, I don't care about most of that stuff, and it's actually been somewhat expensive to learn some of the lessons, you know, and when you push the button, the money doesn't come back, right? So what's the aspect of all of this that's going to actually really help people in society? Because otherwise, you know, I could be spending my time trying to figure out how to make sure that people don't lose the right to vote or whatever. And so this is a big ask of everybody here for time and intelligence and commitment and what's the key elements that are going to actually do the things that we say. I feel like I'm also a little bit behind on some of the things here. Chris, you've obviously gotten a vision of where a lot of this technology could go. I haven't read up on why a DAO is a better idea than a B Corp yet, or some of the other things that would make this technology the most valuable thing and the most important use of the resources of this highly intelligent and very good looking group of people.
Until you got the compliment in, I had a really great answer for you. But no, so look, yes, the transaction fees are look, the cost of, right. Let me actually say it like this, because there's another part that you didn't get at, but I know you're familiar with. People are getting scammed left and right. They think that, let's not do that, but not the Bored Ape, but the Boring Ape is going to be the next big thing. And they're buying into this tulip mania, and they're just getting scammed, and it sucks, and it shouldn't be happening. So a greater literacy needs to happen around this as well, just as we still need to advance media literacy. So actually, one of the things that I hope we're able to do is help more if we can figure out how to make it work for ourselves, is we can bring more social impact community organizations into the fold of using this technology to create that engagement, that funding model, the other stuff to further their missions. So I think we can be that exemplar to that. But where that starts is actually in the education arena. So that's why I'm looking for educators, evangelists, advocates, right, and thought leaders, because one of the core projects in the first one is actually building a resource library and educational programs that people can take, many of which will be for free, some of which will be for pay, and some of which will be facilitated in workshops. And the idea here is that this organization, this community organization, we can collectively produce those things. To that end, right now, in talking about projects to advance that sort of stuff, there's a platform out there, Howard, you might be familiar with, called Ripen, which connects us with college students, grad students, and their programs. And I've got a couple of different schools around the world, universities, one in Canada, one in London right now, who are going to have teams working with us on building that resource library and creating a way to, first of all, different inventory of the current offerings that are out there. So one of the first things we're doing is we're looking for who's got great explainer videos, who's got great educational materials, who's got great case studies, and we're starting to aggregate that and then invite those creators into the fold. And as I look at this long term, what we should end up with is a sort of Coursera that we all own, some of which is available free to the public and free to social impact. And then more of it is going to be available to us in workshops that we are able to sell and develop together. And so that this is a vehicle through which we can actually collaborate with others with similar goals to do these projects, to form sub-DAOs, if it will. And I'm not sure exactly where that goes, but that's the idea of co-owning the network, is to create this vehicle where smart, strong-minded, well-intentioned individuals are able to band together and do something more incredible than they can do on their own. But so the education piece is the first bit of it. And then since we're talking about it as well, those of you who are into sci-fi, you're probably very familiar with Blade Runner and maybe even Altered Carbon. There's a future in which we're bombarded by ads everywhere we go. And I think we can prevent that future. And I have an open source standard that will work towards doing it, that I'm working on advancing on the side with one of my former startups.
Hey, Chris, I'm just going to throw one quick comment and let everyone else talk. I thought your answer was really good. The only piece that I'm still missing is that, okay, we're going to create education for people. I still don't know why there's a huge portion of people that want to be educated about this. Like, I'm not seeing where the value is for a huge portion of these people that we that others have referred to as the unbanked, that I think that we can refer to them differently, but we'll parse those semantics another time.
Yeah, the unbanked thing is a specific thing of, again, they want to get to, again, I think that's a form of greenwashing of some of the greed about security speculation, but that's not for me to judge. That's just kind of some things I've seen. And to your point, I didn't see all this until I went deeper, and I still can't express it well. Not that I've ever been able to, other than having my energy and sort of recognizing when things are going to be important and how it's going to be. And what I can say is that the more we have time to talk about it, the more you'll see the need for us to create approachable use cases, stories of impact. And that's why, actually, another reason why we're uniquely suited to do this, because we're storytellers. We're communicators. We're people who help guide others. And with those skills and with that background, when we get those materials together, when we get those stories together, and when we're able to show better examples of how individuals can be included in the economy and how they can actually not just speculate, but create real value with others. I'll just come back to one last point, and then I'll be quiet on this and go to the next thing. Over the whatever amount of time, decades, I've now come to, if you've seen in my profile anywhere, talking about being a human capitalist. That is what's embodied here. And I believe that human capital is more powerful than venture capital. And as we did with SMC, where I sought to make everyone a co-founder, and as I'm looking here, where essentially everyone, I'm looking to invite you in to not only be a co-founder, but to be a co-owner in it. I don't need to hold 95% of the entity. I don't need to make all that money. We can actually do more better together. And so this is another experiment in that way. I'm sure we're going to make a lot of mistakes, but my hope is that in making those mistakes, we can save others from repeating them.
Thanks, Chris. Gloria, and actually then Justin, but Gloria first, please.
Actually, Chris kind of just made my point in that listening to all of this, because I have a lot to learn about it still. I'm just scratching the surface on learning about any of it. But the one thing in listening to everything that Chris has said today and reading a lot of what he's been writing, that I kept coming back to in the potential in it is the one unique thing that we all have is we're community builders and we're storytellers. Like that is one unique skill set that we all have. And that is where we can bring, I don't know if anybody else feels this way about the social media community as a whole over the last few years. But personally, I feel like it's lost its heart and it's lost its way. And this conversation gives me hope that maybe it can find, like there can be a guiding star to help it find its path again. And so I think that's, Chris made my point for me in that we're storytellers, we're community builders, and maybe we can give it something to strive for once again.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you very much for that. And then, well, I don't want to get too deep down the rabbit hole of social media and where that's gone. Some of you may remember that back in even 2010, 11, I was like, I don't want to be king of the social media douchebags because it became all about the ecosystem instead of the ecosystem. And so this is about that same heart. And that's where it also matches that point in history 15 years ago, where it's a chance again for this new thing that's emerging for us to put that heart into it and make it really the center of it and make sure that it's considered consistently throughout. And with benefit of our wisdom and our scars and our stories and our journey together and the bonds that we've all created, seeing so many of my friends and faces who know and love and have spent so much time with in different cities around the world, which hopefully we'll get to do again at some point soon. That just brings me right back to the reason why I wanted to do this, because seeing how that value of sharing brought so many amazing people from around the world together. I didn't want to get into it too much, but some of you may have seen even a couple of years ago, I tried to launch the Old Souls Network. That was a very similar sort of intention to it, right? Because I'm like, oh, one of the things that's interesting about all these people who came out for Social Media Club is a lot of old souls who have this deeper sense of purpose to what's going on here. And, as some of you may also recall at the beginning, I was like, it could have been something else, but social media was a place at which society was intersecting, where there's a common need and a common interest to learn together. And so that's another thing that I see happening here again, is that there's that inflection point in society where a small group of determined people can literally change the world. And it is a parade that's happening. And so that's why now is the time to get out in front of it and help to shape it in the direction that serves humanity and our own individual interests, instead of the interest of the elite few.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for that, Gloria, too. Todd, you want to jump in here?
I was just going to comment on, Gloria's comment, and I think Chris managed it, and answered it very nicely. Yeah, I mean, I teach social media at Boston University, and my reading list has changed dramatically from the yay, everything's awesome to critical, look at the evils of social media. This is the latest book that I'm teaching on, The Society of the Selfie. Social media and the crisis of liberal democracy, right? That's what you get in my class these days. But I do think that Web3, the DAO, while it certainly has its risks, and thankfully, thanks to our scars, as you so nicely put it, we're more aware of those. It does have a great deal of potential. I mean, I'm working in the Cardano ecosystem, and they are all about the unbanked. I mean, they are spending millions of dollars in Africa.
Yeah.
And I just think, I just want to say I'm really excited about how this can go. And as long as we keep that critical eye, hopefully we'll be okay.
I didn't know that. That's awesome to hear that you're working with Cardano. And Justin, I don't know if you're familiar with Cardano and what they're doing in education, but we're actually going to potentially be working on an identity project for Ethiopia. They're, because they're basically, and that's one of the areas where in education it gets really interesting. Like I've been in the space for about 7 or 8 years doing blockchain stuff, and I have a couple startups. And one of the people I was talking to recently is like a professor in Portugal who wants to buy a small university in Brazil and then instrument it with some health IT training that they know would do well in those regions where the university serves in the area. And I suggested that you basically take the university and buy it and put it in a DAO, because one of the good use cases for this technology is provenance, and not just provenance of tangible goods, but also provenance of data. That's kind of where I come from. That's where my startups have been. So I've actually got one company that I work with, a partner company that works with several universities where they mint their diploma as an NFT and create a digital twin, essentially to what Chris is talking about, where the digital and the paper are the same thing. And there's no way to forge the paper because of the digital information, essentially. And there are other security factors you could add to a document, right? If you wanted to present a document like franking and watermarks and stuff like that. But at least you know that the information on the document is valid, because if you try to check it and it doesn't match what's been recorded to a blockchain, and it's identities. So you can use the same technology to do like a badge as well as a diploma. But now when it comes to the HR department, and they want to be sure that this diploma that you have and all the other credentials that you have that you assert to, and that's one of the big opportunities that Social Media Club has, as Chris is pointing out, is that the technology is very good for governing things, right? And being able to govern things without, if you design it properly, without the real potential for there to be any corruption. And the votes of the group, the choices that the group make to put up to vote and all that kind of stuff. If you design things properly, the group owns it. So that's where it gets interesting, because where you have an organization, you create an org and you've got people and you worry about where the money's going and this and that and the other, you kind of eliminate some of that stuff and allow you to focus on your mission. And then also in the aspect of justice, where the value that's flowing through the system then gets apportioned and flows to the parties that it's intended to flow to without disruption even. So, I mean, it's not necessarily utopia, but in terms of our progression through technology and being able to embrace technology to govern ourselves, it's really great. And I would also invite people to take a deep look at these communities, because there's already a lot of well-developed community activity going on. I would say that a lot of the blockchain ethos comes from the open source world, and the
Yes.
open source world completely relies on community to drive those projects. So,
Exactly.
so
That's really great to hear about your past work. And then just speaking to the chain, because I like Cardano as well, Solana, there's a bunch of them out there. Everyone's competing to be the one that rules them all in many sense. But some of them are more focused on, specific community projects. So that's an interesting thing in of itself. But one of the great things that's happening there is that the chains themselves are becoming new financial institutions that are developing their own grants. So that we actually have an opportunity now to try to identify which chain do we want to build some of this stuff on that we're building, and actually get them to become a sponsor and use them as the basis for it. Go ahead, please.
I think there's a lot of value to work with. Can I respond to something Nathan said?
Please.
I'd like to use. There's absolutely so much. To respond to what Howard said, I empathize with your position as someone who's a teacher and is exposed to the parents of kids created in schools which were originally conceived to educate kids to work in factories. There's a whole lot of people who are in danger in the world of Bitcoin maxis and the drama around that sort of value capture. There's a lot of people who are going to be turned off, but also basically miss out, which led into, so basically I empathize with your position, the issues on fees. I feel like they're being addressed with the Constitution DAO. They had a layer 2 solution for that through I believe it was through a company called Juice, which was basically waiving some of the fees, but also had a way to make it cheaper, which I don't perfectly understand. Insofar as what Gloria said and what Todd said, I think what old social media kind of gives us is an appreciation for the idea that there are different people who care about different things. And that sounds a lot like a DAO to me. Like, I think the old social media world had its problems. One of the reasons it had problems was there was no unifying principle around that connection. So in the absence of a unifying principle guiding that connection, people went, well, hi, I've got a cat video, here you go. And to get to what Nathan said, I think LinkedIn is shit. So what I'd love to do is use the blockchain to basically get a record of what people care about, but also the work they do and what they care about.
Yes.
So if I believe it's possible to stop bad hires, all bad hires everywhere. I think a lot of human happiness is actually a human resource problem.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's so much to it, and I'm sorry, we're just at time. Otherwise, so I have to kind of cut you off so we can get wrapped up here. And I actually have another call I'm supposed to be on, although I just told them I'll be a couple minutes late.
But first, Chris, can we also just, I know both Gloria and Alex have raised their hands. If we can just have them share real quick too before you do.
Honey, I'm literally supposed to be on a call a minute ago.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, if I may. And so that's got to go. But so the main thing here is, well, shoot. So I'm going to send out this deck to you that has a few more slides in it. There's some links at the end to everything, so that's all there. But what I'm trying to do is get your interest. Subscribe at the Substack on web31.live. That's our main website that'll take you there. I think I included it in the calendar invite. And if you're able to volunteer, if you have an interest in joining, if you have something you want to speak about, please nominate yourself or nominate somebody else you know, and join the Discord. And we're going to be putting out a lot of work and tasks that we need help with. But it's speakers, sponsors, it's producing this unconference. That's the first focus. And then it's moving towards this other longer term value of the community. So we've got several months in which we're going to be talking about what it becomes, how it works, and working through the issues. And so I'd really love to have more of you join us on this journey for all the reasons that I've been able to share and for so many more. But I do believe we are in a perfect position to come back and actually lead this revolution with the same spirit we did previously. And I'd really love to do that with each and every one of you. So thank you for joining this morning.
Great.
Have a
And I
great
actually
day.
just said Chris is going to drop, but I'm going to hang on for a few, assuming
Okay,
that,
yeah, great. Thank you, Christy.
yeah, good. Go. But I did want to hang on because, and I apologize. Like, I know Alex, I'd love to have you share what you were going to share, and anybody else who can stay, we'd love to have that too. And I know we need more of this, whether we're talking about Web3 or not. I just seeing everybody here makes me so happy. I'm going to get emotional because Gloria started it. But having you guys all here is super important, and we love seeing everybody's face, and I want to hear what everybody's doing. But first, Alex, please take the floor.
Yeah, you actually answered my so much information. This is great. Let's set up a Discord and continue.
Yeah, we did, I think you've, I don't know if it's my internet or yours, but we do have a Discord we set up too. For those that haven't used it, it's much like a Slack on steroids. It can get a little overwhelming. But at the same time, it's great because we can actually, yeah, just a little overwhelming, Todd. But it's great. So I'll make sure everybody who would like to be, added in. I don't want to just throw people in there, but if you'd like to be, please just let me know. Just send me a quick DM and chat or something, and we'll make sure everybody gets added in there. That's where we'll be using to try to convene around this conference. A couple of you have actually offered to participate and help in whatever way you can, whether that's even just being a learner, that's sharing, because some of you guys are deep in it with, Todd and Nathan. You guys have been doing this.
Are you selling these tickets as NFTs?
I don't know. I mean, maybe we should.
You totally should. It's like
I
not
know.
rocket science. And
I know.
I mean,
As long
We're
as
at
I don't
the
have
whole
to
thing
pay
is
more for the
right.
gas fee than the ticket, I'm all right,
Yeah.
but like,
well,
let's
I mean,
not
and the
just
big-
give everybody else money. Let's find a way to give us the money, right?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, the gas fees, to be clear, if you incur gas fees for anything you do, it's tax deductible. Those are transaction fees that you can write off on your taxes. It's a business expense, right? Just so you know,
Fascinating. My
from-
accountant would have no idea what to do with that, by the way. And my
it's
wife's
a
my
bank
wife works
fee.
for an accounting firm. Well,
They,
okay,
they do.
interesting.
They do. It's like they're like taxes this year. The government's really looking at crypto. They're all educated. They've been asking for 3 years on your taxes if you're buying crypto. So they're
Well,
aware.
that's because
of the
they
law.
want to charge you if you've made money on your crypto rather
They
than want to make sure that you
do.
get the good business expenses.
But absolutely, I mean, it's a business expense, right? I do lots of NFT projects. I've been in the blockchain space for almost 10 years. I've got 2 startups in the space. I designed the supply chain provenance system for the country of Bahrain, the blockchain supply chain system. There's a lot of use cases for this stuff. Like, that's why this is kind of exciting to me, because I was curious if you guys were going to do anything. So the whole professional organization and governance piece, the opportunity for you is to issue identity tokens for people that become part. So in the same way that somebody's buying a Bored Ape and using that to signal that, they're whatever, they're into crypto, they're part of the club, whatever it is. NFTs from that perspective, from a marketer's perspective and a communicator's perspective, are just signals and tokens or signaling something, right? So just like with your academic credential, let's say my university now turns my diploma into an NFT, and now I have an identity wallet in a zero trust environment that I have control of, and I've got my diploma in there, and now I've got my social media club token in there, which proves that yes, I'm following the guidelines, I took the test, I'm in good standing, whatever, and that token can be revoked. That is to the point of someone else. That's what employers are going to be relying on in the very near future, because this is all coming very, very quickly, especially because the metaverse investment is going to increase, and brands now have a completely brand new universe or universes to sell their products and services or allow people to engage and stuff. And
it's going to be legit when Disney's going to do their own metaverse, right?
the good
So-
news is that it's also GDPR and COPPA and regulatorily resistant in terms of privacy and identity, because I can start a service where I validate that you're Howard Greenstein and give you a Greenstein token that you can carry and forever prove digitally and tangibly that you are that person. I can create a token that can't leave your wallet. Like you can't sell it, you can't move it, right? So I think a lot of it relies, or a lot of this surrounds the fact that folks don't actually have, the knowledge isn't spread evenly. you know, and that's,
I could give you 16 reasons why I don't want to be immutably known. My ancestors had to wear Jewish stars sewn on their coats. And I just saw someone put out a Mazel token in Israel. And I'm like, let's see what we can do to collect all the
but
Jews.
you are
in one
immutably known
place.
already. You carry a token in your wallet. The government has all your information, your credit
Yes.
card, your phone. I mean, it's ridiculous to argue.
No, I mean,
that
I'm not
education-
trying to put up that kind of a, you know, like go that far negative. What
Right.
I'm saying is like, there are great reasons to be well known and immutably known. And look, I check everybody that comes in my building and we have security there.
So let's say you're going to buy into an NFT project and it's done by a
Mhm.
bunch of artists who are very wealthy and don't want to be cyber attacked or have their hands and arms cut off.
Mhm.
How would you know that they are who they say they are? And do you trust any third parties to assert someone's identity as being trustworthy? And how do they
Probably,
do
you know, if
that?
we're talking about a big art project, yeah, like Christie's or Sotheby's or somebody like that. Probably
You're
have
relying
done
on
the
them, but
work.
how do you do it when you're buying or they're selling an NFT and let's say it's Beeple. How do you know it's
That's why I
Beeple after
haven't,
you own
that's
it?
why I'm not buying any of that stuff.
How
not
would
spending
I've got
any
the
of my
But
answer.
how
money
would you
towards
then
it.
go then how do you know you're getting an authentic Fendi purse when you're buying it from e-commerce, unless you're buying it from the source? And even then, you don't necessarily know you're getting an authentic.
Again, not trying to be belligerent, but I usually don't. So
Well,
Justin, do you have
Balaji's,
anything?
Let's
I
Balaji's
think
think
got
about
the
it in the
answer.
larger context. There's lots of,
Balaji's got the answer. Howard, there's something called I can't even say the word, pseudonymity. So basically, like
pseudo-anonymity.
your information's on the blockchain, but sort of access to you as a human being in a time and place isn't. So you can have that the shield of that online identity without feeling like you're going to be doxxed because of
Right.
it.
Right. And that's why I was using the Bored Ape as an example, that when you're a Bored Ape owner, you know that you're a Bored Ape owner because you have it in your wallet. I've been talking to someone who coaches basketball players on financial education, like early on in their career, all that kind of stuff. And there are events, there are perks, there are benefits to being a basketball player, a professional basketball player, or an NCAA player, right? And let's say that there's a way for people to benefit in that, or in a class like that. We already do this with membership cards, right? Or status cards for companies and brands, right? To where you could prove that you are a card holder without having to share your identity or anything about your identity, and share it provably based on the trust established that you all have in a third party. And that third party could also be a DAO as well, when you apply that DAO model to the governance of issuing credentials. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not necessarily trying to be belligerent either, but it's definitely, it's like, it's coming. And it's definitely something to become really familiar with, because it's going to be around us everywhere much faster than most other technologies have been embraced, I think.
Well, I think the thing that's super important too about what Howard's sharing here is that there's going to be a lot of people who are uncomfortable with
Absolutely.
how this tech is going to be used. And I think, Howard, I don't know if you were saying it sarcastically or not, but I think that there actually is a whole session that could be led about because we saw this with social, right?
I'm not
went in and-
sarcastic at all about that, Christina. I'm
Okay,
really
good.
serious.
Good. I'm serious
mean,
too. I think it's
and-
worthy.
Like Nathan, I guess I spend time every day with people who are considered in this country undocumented, which some people would call
Mhm.
illegal, but of course we prefer to call them undocumented because no human should be illegal. That gives it's given me a different perspective on certain things. And again, living in New York, where it's super liberal, and like they're even talking about that you can get a New York City ID card that's not a US government ID card. You can potentially vote in New York if they pass this without being a citizen of the United States. And there's all sorts of things. Like, there are interesting new things coming, but it's not always there's a lot of subtlety to this. And I'm not.
Yeah,
being
no,
flippant,
I mean,
I'm
I
very,
run a
deliberate
cybersecurity.
about it.
I run a managed cybersecurity company, and I do security for celebrities, high net worth individuals. But then I also, do a lot of digital response and crisis management and cybersecurity research too. So, I mean, I get what you're talking about. There's a balance, but then to other people's points, like being involved in the process of shaping it, like no one was involved in the process of shaping what Facebook did except Facebook, right? And I know a lot of the dirty details of a lot of things that all these actors are doing, backwards and forwards. But to your point, that's why understanding it well and being able to get involved now, like with cities, like you're pointing out, like using blockchain to access traffic camera information, right? So that there's a public way to access these things and public record and in the legal system and through, right? There's a lot of expense that we go to manage those kind of custody things that a lot of that expense can be eliminated if you set things up right. Like your identity systems that you're talking about that cities are issuing to be able to provide services to people, to like homeless, to be able to figure out how to reach them or where to reach them. Or, I know someone in LA who's working on a way to get crypto wallets to homeless people so that when they lose them, they can recover the wallet easily. And of course there's other ways that they manage that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of really interesting applications. So in that context.
I think the most interesting aspect of, the decentralization and the efforts of Web3 is taking control of your identity back, right? Howard, you're obviously, very important case of, government identities and how they're used against you. But I'm looking at it from the perspective of, would I rather have Facebook control my profile where it takes a month before I can delete my account fully, and Lord knows who they're selling all of my information to actually taking back my own identity and having full control of it in a wallet that, frankly, I can disown in a second, right? And just say, disavow, drop the wallet, and, depending on what information, was out there publicly, it gives you full control. The flip side of that is when you conduct transactions on the blockchain with that identity, a lot of information ends up being exposed to the public. So there's, I would be fascinated to participate in the skeptics conversation with you, because there are definitely, two sides to this.
I'm signing you both up then. You guys are
Yeah,
there.
no, definitely.
Well,
That's why I reached out to you
unfortunately,
too,
You
Howard. because I
scheduled
was
this
like, we should have
conference
this.
on a Tuesday, and
Oh.
that's my heavy work teach load day. So.
Uh-oh, okay, well, let's figure out, maybe we can do something in advance or something too, Todd, because I think Gloria kind of touched on it before, right? Like, I think we've kind of seen the pros and the cons of social. Like, we've all benefited from social, just for me personally, just the mere connections we've been able to make around the world. It just, like, I live and breathe on that. But also there's a lot of underbelly and seediness that has come from social. And we're not going to be able to prevent that with this advancement of all of these new technologies coming. There's just, like, I'm too jaded to think that we can ever stop that from happening. But I also feel like there's an opportunity to help expose or make people aware of what that underbelly could be, so that they're better prepared, right? And that's, for me, what I really want to kind of see is, like, how can we make sure people understand it enough to participate if they wish. Some people won't care, they'll never need wallets, they'll never want to buy an NFT, they don't need to know what the blockchain is. But for those that are interested, like, make sure that they're set up so they don't get scammed, that they don't lose their wallet and their assets, right? I mean, that shit, I still have stuff in Binance I can't get out of because I forgot to transfer it when they switched to US.
From China.
What's that?
From China.
Yes. Yeah. So, like, and I'm like going, crap, we'll never get access to that again. And so there's some expensive mistakes people will make, but there's also, to that point, protecting your identity. And when you are interacting, with these technologies, what that's actually meaning with regards to your data. I think there's so much to learn from here that I think, but I also think there's a naysayers, a skeptics panel. So
And there's also a lot of that stuff already happening too. So, that's why maybe getting involved, like, are you familiar? Obviously you use Clubhouse, but do you use Clubhouse very much?
Yeah.
There's a community in Clubhouse called the NFTs.tips community that has grown up over 40,000 people who I kind of work with and do events and things like that. And that's why a lot of these communities and these tools are being used, because the usability of Web3 right now is terrible. It's kind of like the usability of OpenID when, I don't know if you ever had an open ID,
Oh, yeah.
ID before
Oh,
when
yeah.
it was early, but right, until it was baked into the plumbing, it wasn't really adopted and it wasn't really necessarily as secure. And that's kind of the inflection point that we're at again, to Todd's point. It's like an identity thing, because all of this stuff relies on identity and your behavior. So, we're looking at things like being able to fingerprint content. So when you write a news article, you fingerprint that article, and therefore that fingerprint provides the provenance of where that information came from. So, so creating fake news and disinformation defense and breaks and friction to put bad information out there. Same thing with NFTs, right? I have an NFT image and I'm going to go sign up for that Yawning Apes project. Is that a Bored Apes project, right? Are these images valid? Well, if those fingerprints of those images are registered with a credentialer, much like we're talking about credentialing people's identities here, then I can rely on the validity of this is not signed by the right party, right? And these are things that are all allowed or able to be automated and done in the open. So that's the value side of providing some of the openness of the information. But again, to Todd's point, in a zero trust environment, which is what blockchain is designed to be, right? Where you have a wallet and you have, you're interacting with the network through your wallet. That wallet provides that identity barrier. To Todd's point, when you instantiate a wallet, if there's no connection to that public address to anything, you are essentially anonymous. Nobody knows. If I buy a Bored Ape with that thing, maybe they followed how the funds have got into the wallet to be able to identify me, but maybe not. It's without getting into the weeds, there's just so many different aspects to this. It's not just technology, because it's also political and social and moral and legal. And it touches everything, right? So that's why it is so transformational. It's worth really understanding.
Well, and I think that's where part of Chris's ask was also, and we're going to send around the deck. There's a bunch of links in there too. It's for you guys, Nate, Todd, you guys have been in this for a bit, and there's also, we don't want to, I hate the thing called standing on the shoulders of giants, right? But to that point of, there's a lot of people who are doing, there's already communities that have formed. There's people who are offering great resources already. Part of his ask was to try to resource that, to build out the library of those trusted sources. So now I can go onto Clubhouse and look for the NFT tips group, right? And participate in that, because I didn't know about that one. But it came from you. So I'm like, okay, that's a trusted source. I'm going to believe that whatever they share is going to be valuable for me to spend my time and learn about.
Yeah.
And I think that's
and they're building a DAO, and they have people who are NFT producers, right? And that's kind of what they're doing, is using that, because I'm right now rescuing lots of NFT projects that have either had a team that's not performing, or they created some work that was somehow problematic and they walked away from the project. So literally, an NFT project is a lot like a card deck, right? And the cards have jobs that they do if you've done your job designing the project well, right? And so we can buy an asset like that, convert it, and basically burn the initial NFTs, or give them a pill and transform them, from a storyteller's perspective. But under the hood, we've got some blockchain smart contracts that are doing some stuff that we had one project that had 10,000 pieces and had 2,500 buyers. And there were some images in there that were problematic because they were problematic to women, or for women, right? So it kind of soiled the project. But now we can buy that asset, take that existing community and transform them over into another project and reinvigorate it, right? So there's lots of really, bad stuff happening, and having more professional organizations that are able to help govern how the activities, and where you can dog food the technology to help signal that, right? Like this whole identity token idea, like nobody's thinking about it yet really, but that's going to be a thing. It already is kind of a thing, right? I mean, I've been to 3 or 4 NFT conferences this year, and in New York in November, the Bored Apes Yacht Club had a yacht party, and you had to have your Bored Ape to get on board, right? what brands, I mean, every brand is falling all over themselves now to be able to do this stuff and think about it and get in on it. So yeah, for anyone who's kind of in our discipline, it's definitely worth understanding for sure, because it's just coming.
All I know is if there are two people that I am confident are not gonna do a rug pull on me, it's Chris and Christy.
Thank you for your vote of confidence, Todd. I did tell
Exactly.
Chris, if we do anything that we do, he talked about it earlier about sustainability. It's like going, it is one of those things that, because I'm still learning, right? I'm trying to read everything I can. I want to surround
Check
myself.
out oceanbottle.io.
What was that?
Check out oceanbottle.io.
Ocean bottle.
Check out, they're actually partnered with a couple companies. So what they do is when you buy one of their bottles, they donate money to have 10,000 bottles worth of plastic removed from the ocean. And that project that does it, that project partner actually has a blockchain where they track all the plastic that's collected all around the world, and that's how they pay the people collecting the plastic out of the ocean. And it's, essentially like turned into a gig work economy for plastic removal that this separate entity does, but Ocean Bottle donates to them. So companies will buy these ocean bottles, and be able to apply those efforts towards their corporate social responsibility. And the bottles all have RFIDs in them. So when you go to Starbucks and you fill your bottle with water, you can check in with your your thing, which is essentially an NFT. That's what I'm talking to them about doing. So that data then lines up with you, or maybe it lines up with your employer or whatever program gave you the bottle, right? So there's just so now all of a sudden by filling your water bottle, somebody's donating money to this organization and removing plastic from the ocean because you're using your water bottle. That's
Right, so this is the Tom's Shoes, Warby Parker of reusable water bottles, because there's probably no substantive difference between this and like a Camelback or whatever.
a Camelback,
but or not a Camelback, but like their brand, but they're doing the social good part of it and they're committing to it, and they've set their company up around it, which I appreciate. I think that's cool.
Well, and it's also
not
and it also provides an opportunity for the consumer then to participate in understanding the supply chain provenance and where that thing has been and where it's sourced from and how it's made and like all that stuff, right? And then also for other larger organizations, right? So one company that I work with basically has a blockchain platform for creating private data rooms where they can take, for instance, they started by taking data from buildings, IoT data from buildings, and turning that into a financial product that takes this investment that an investor owns and can't really sell and move, and turn that into improve their bottom line and generate revenue from it, and now turn waste data, exhaust, into a product. And there are a number of different areas where that's beneficial to financialize sustainability data. So where a company can provably provide information, let's say they buy 1,000 of these water bottles and they give them to all their employees, and now all of a sudden all their employees are doing this. I mean, has an impact, right? And if you can measure that impact and make that data provable, right? Because the area I came from is being able to take Bitcoin wallets and put your health information in there and provably own it, or be able to prove that you own it, and also prove where it came from so that a doctor could rely on it. Again, that's a provenance problem. It's a provenance of information. And we'll see that in our supply. I mean, that is a step towards supply chain security with all of the attacks and gas pipeline attacks to the SolarWinds attacks to all these digital attacks. They affect tangible things. They affect medical supply chains, right? So that's another reason why all of this stuff is kind of coming to a head right now, because these are also solutions for protecting those kind of things as well.
To your point, the potential here is like immense. And I think that there's so much to learn and all that too. I think that's why I'm excited about building up this little resource guide, because I want to add places like this Ocean Bottle. I mean, because that's something that's very important and close and near and dear to my things that I want to do, which is great.
Cardano has a forest of 1,000,000 trees that they just planted.
Cardano does. Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm sure Todd could tell you all about what's going on with Cardano. We're definitely gonna have a chat, man.
Definitely.
Yeah, if you guys are not connected, I'll help make sure you guys are. Or I think actually Aaron did that spreadsheet, which is great. So you guys can all get connected on Twitter and LinkedIn and everything else. I know we are coming up to, it's 9 o'clock my time, noon for some of you folks. And or 3, yeah.
In the morning.
Oh my
I gotta
gosh,
get to bed.
Justin, wait, where are you at? Are you in Australia?
Brisbane, Australia.
It is Brisbane. Okay. Well, thank you for staying up and participating in this, because you're obviously, we love your contributions here too, and we will follow up. But
It's gonna sound ridiculous, but basically, I'm a teacher, like I said. I'm not around a lot of people who care about the future of the planet. I'm around a lot of people who are organizational Stockholm syndrome. Like, so to be around people who want to design this future in an empowered and great way is an honor for me. So this is no big deal at all. Like, getting up, no big deal. I'm around believers.
yay, this is awesome.
Sleep well, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Bye,
Thanks
all.
you
Have a
guys.
great rest of your day, everybody.
Yeah,
Take care.
thank you. And we'll be reaching out to everybody and get everybody connected to kind of tighten this up a little bit and see how people want to participate. And there's a couple specifically, I'm looking at you and Nate and Todd, that I want to have some more conversations about how we might be able to set this thing up.
Sounds good.
All right,
Hey,
guys.
guys.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much. Have a wonderful weekend.
You
Bye-bye
too,
now.
Christy.
All right, bye-bye.